Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres. For today's video, I'm actually not going to be getting into any battle. I actually have something that I want to discuss more as a direct focus. And that is, I want to talk about something that a lot of the community has been going on about for a couple of weeks, between community contributors and even just other content creators, and I want to put in my 5 cents on it. And keep in mind, this is coming from the perspective of a co-op main player here. But something that I can't help but think is that, and I do agree with a lot of the community contributors, I might add, I want to get that out of the way right now, that this skill is a huge bonus and detrimental to the gameplay overall, probably from the perspective of PvP more so than anything, and I can understand why. It's literally just a straight up bonus. The only downside is if you have anything that's inside of your ship's base detection range, then you lose the skill. But therein lies the problem, because what this is doing, and I mean, I've even seen a couple of community contributors showcasing battles where this was utilized to absolutely annoying effect, was that there were battleships who positioned themselves at the extreme fringes of the map and simply sniped at long range without getting themselves into the battle, getting themselves into any risk whatsoever, and seriously just harassed entire teams, basically, for the entire match without really having much input to the game otherwise. They did not do any pushing, they did not really provide any support, they simply stayed at long range and sniped from long range. And they were keeping high speed in order to keep that range, to keep their dispersion bonus. And I do agree with just about everybody on this one that it is wrong that this one skill has that much power. And to that point, what I wish to mention as an idea, and I guarantee Wargaming's probably never even going to see this video or anything like that, but I still think that my thoughts should be heard on it. Now, one thing that I do want to say specifically, again, as a co-op main, is that I do see it as a helpful skill for certain battleships, especially in co-op scenarios where, say, you clear a flank early on in the match, and let's say you're running in your Colorado, and now the only enemies are clear across the map and your dispersion is crappy as all hell. Under those circumstances, and, well, in some cases, maybe, say it's an enemy Colorado, and you're at least able to keep pace with it, but you don't have the dispersion to effectively hit it very often, because it's keeping pace with you at max range or whatever. So I can definitely see it benefiting the lower tier battleships or the slower battleships in World of Warships. Very definitely. And this is where this is where my thought actually comes into play. Because I was looking, I mean, I've got the US tech line up here specifically, but there are other battleships that I'm going to mention across all of the tech lines. Because, I mean, let's say I look at the New Mexico. It's got a top speed of 21 knots. It's certainly not setting any speed records. West Virginia 41, again, 21 knots. Colorado, 21 knots. And these are with upgraded engine modules. These are their top speeds. I mean, okay, yeah, sure, I can fix on the Sierra Mike flag, get the speed up to, wow, a blistering 22.1 knots. We're really breaking some records there, folks. I'm sorry, was that out loud? But even Texas, I mean, there's 20.5. New York, 21. Wyoming, 20.5. Let's look at other tech tree ships. Let's go to, say, UK. We've got Queen Elizabeth here at 23.5. We've got King George. Well, we're not talking about King George. She's not technically a slow battleship. We've got the Iron Duke at 22.5. Let's come up to the German. I mean, Bayern gets a little bit... I mean, she's not exactly super slow. She's 25 knots with a fully upgraded engine. But, I mean, she's still a relatively slow battleship. With, what, 32, 37 knot ships sailing around her? Even got Kaiser at 23. Nassau, I think, is 22. We won't even discuss the Russian bias ships. But let's say also coming here, we've got Kawachi. Granted, this is without the upgrade. Upgraded to 20 knots. Let's look at the Miyogi, which upgrades to... Oh, Miyogi's actually relatively quick, 28 knots, so maybe not so much the Miyogi. Congo, I know, is fast. Fuso, 24.5 knots. Nagato, fully upgraded, goes to 25 knots. I mean, these are technically slow battleships, and they do struggle to get around the map. But there are some ships that definitely do struggle more than others, and yeah, U.S. battleships, I'm looking at you, up to and including the newfangled dreadnought-style U.S. battleships, which, I mean, Kansas here doesn't even get an engine upgrade. The Minnesota, same. So these ships have a blistering top speed of, wow, 23 knots, with other battleships sailing around them like, oh, I don't know, the Montana, which sees a nice, solid 30 knots without any speed boosts. So, I mean, they do struggle to keep up in the faster-paced games, especially in co-op matches. But this is also part... But my suggestion also comes in from the standpoint of looking at the random matches where players are having problems with them, because ships will sail, again, at top speed, keeping distance, and basically just not really give themselves much risk. So, my suggestion is that wargaming actually goes into the commander skills, looks at the Deadeye skill, and maybe adds another criteria to its activation. That any ship that uses the Deadeye skill has to be restricted to a top speed of, let's say, 25, maybe 24 knots, and that they have to be sailing at that speed for at least a minute before the skill takes effect. And that can be on top of the other criteria that's listed here, with the accuracy of the main battery also being subject to ships within the detection radius. And now, what it would do, instead of providing just a straight up bonus, would actually provide a nerf respective for a low tier or higher tier skill. And that would be, you would have a choice: accuracy or speed. If you want the speed, you have to sacrifice the accuracy. If you want the speed to get away, to evade, you have to sacrifice that accuracy. On the other hand, if you want your accuracy, you have to sacrifice your speed, which makes yourself easier to catch, and ultimately it would, I think, make this decision not as cut and dry for some battleship players. Because, again, if you're wanting to... I do think that it does need some sort of cost and effect balance, or cause and effect balance, where it needs something that provides a detriment to it, not just a straight up bonus. Now, granted, there are some other skills that provide straight up bonuses as well, But, I mean, if you're talking about secondary builds and things like that, I mean, I've already seen a lot of people saying that secondary builds are basically nothing compared to the current Deadeye meta that is starting to take in. In fact, I've seen a number of sources that say that secondary builds are basically dead, especially because of the Deadeye build. So I think that giving a detrimental effect to speed, either maybe just a set reduction to speed if Wargaming wanted to take it that way, or a certain speed requirement in knots or throttle setting or whatever. And I would argue specifically towards the certain speed in knots, because again, there are some ships that could very much benefit from this without having to sacrifice their speed. Again, I'm looking at the slower battleships like the Colorado, the Nagato, well, maybe not necessarily the Nagato, but would definitely benefit from those accuracy bonuses without having to sacrifice their speed, because they're already so slow already that they have to really truly struggle to chase anything down, and in effect they actually don't have the speed to chase anything down. So that's where I'm coming from on this. It's too powerful a skill. It needs to have some sort of drawback. I mean, other things that are here, I mean, I can understand the close quarters combat being a straight up bonus. And it's only active if you have a ship that is within your main battery range. And even then, 10 seconds, I mean, that's what, 3 seconds off your reload for depending on the battleship you're playing? I mean, yeah, that's 3 seconds off the Montana. And, I mean, okay, yeah, sometimes that 3 seconds can make a difference, but it's not exactly game-breaking. Adrenaline Rush does better than that. Let's talk about other skills, like fire prevention. That's not a game-breaking skill there. Emergency repair. Again, not a game-breaking skill. Concealment. I mean, for PvP, there seem to be a lot of people who go for concealment for battleships. I don't know why. But, I mean, but concealment is also part and parcel with this whole Deadeye spamming issue. Because if you take Concealment Expert, you reduce your base detectability range, which just makes the Deadeye skill effective longer. Whereas, again, if Wargaming were to go with my suggestion and create a speed requirement, again, this would at least provide the opportunity for these ships to be chased down and not just sit spamming at long range and be able to keep that distance to spam at long range ad nauseum. So that's, I mean, I don't know what any of you might think about that. I think it would be the best idea to try to deal with the Deadeye skill, at least in regards to how overpowered a lot of people are making it sound. And I do agree, it is, by all impressions, it is relatively overpowered for battleships that have long-range artillery skills. So they definitely need some sort of cutback. And again, that's the best thing I can come up with. And if you think about it, it would make sense. Again, just set personally, from my perspective, just set a speed requirement. Set a maximum speed requirement of 24 knots that has to be maintained for at least 60 seconds. Or maybe even 40 seconds, 30 seconds, something. But make them sacrifice that speed, and also make them have to sacrifice the speed for an extended period of time to give other ships the opportunity for counterplay. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the matter. I'm sure that people will either condemn me or praise me for the viewpoint in comments if they so feel like it. But I do think that that is a definite way the skill could go without really, truly neutering it. It just needs, it does need some improvement, as the case may be. And by improvement, I mean it needs to have some additional balance check made. On that note, I shall go ahead and let you all go for right now. I hope you all take care, stay safe out there, and I wish you all happy hunting.